All right. So welcome everyone to another chapter here of the Let's Talk AI Conversational Voice Agents. We're a subgroup of the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance, started by Lou Kerner and his crew. And Joey and I run this subgroup. I recommend going to the website and checking out the other subgroups. Det Deli runs on data ownership, and Eric Frost runs on agentic commerce. Two really great groups, and there's more popping up. There's legal, a whole bunch. So for today, we want to meet some new members, or anyone who hasn't attended one of these meetings before. I know I run a lot of different meetings, so I forget who necessarily shows up for which ones. We sort of acquaint people with our mission and purpose. And today we're going to have two great presenters. Joey's going to give us everyone a quick update on what's going on with Nova Echo 2.0. But we're going to spend the bulk of the time talking with Ben, or Ben's going to be presenting about two really cool projects he's working on. Tranquilla AI, which is transforming mental health support. This is such a great use case for UI, for AI and conversational voice AI agents. And in Xena, like, hey, a lot of us are working in startups. We know how hard it is to sell. And, if you could free up more time to talk to customers instead of all the admin work that goes around with sales and all the follow-up, wouldn't that be great? Um, and then we want to start, figuring out ways we can foster more collaboration. If you attended last month's meeting, when Joey from Nova Echo, Sean from uh, NovaWorks, and John Muldoon spoke, they all, even though they spoke on different topics, they all had a common thing around how do we make these AI agents more personalized? How do we capture the context of the story so the next time you call them, they pick right up with where they left off? And so Deli's going to talk a little bit about that with what he's doing with iCubes around that and discuss ways we can, start collaborating and getting more involved here as a group. So, with that in mind, let's oh, I went in the wrong direction. Let's give any new members an opportunity to introduce themselves. Um, Ben, you'll introduce yourself later as a speaker, but anyone else here who hasn't participated in this group, please just take yourself off mute and say hello.
Should that be me, Peter? I haven't participated in this group, but I have
Oh
participated
yeah,
in the
you're
other
new to this
group.
group, so yeah, say hello, Sonia. Introduce
Hi,
yourself to the group.
everyone. Yeah, because I can see some new faces here. That's why I thought that it might be relevant. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia. Super excited to be in this group. I attended the other groups together with Peter, but not this particular one. I have a project that could be also relevant to this group here. It's called IMAR. It's an AI marketing assistant helping small businesses and startups to digitize their marketing strategies and create 3-month roadmaps for execution. So today we'll be talking about sales. So yeah, I think I'll be super excited to know more about the topic and see any potential collaboration opportunities. So that's all.
Yeah. Sonia, please drop your information in the chat along with anyone else. Feel free to share that. I definitely recommend checking out her product. I checked out the free trial and it was really cool at coming up with like an ideal customer profile and some personas, and then some recommendations on some posts and messaging to test on social media. So it's really cool. She combines that with her own skills and marketing to provide a complete solution to customers. But the AI part is the part that's really sort of lets you sort of accelerate that process. Anyone else new to the group and want to introduce themselves?
Hi everyone. My name's Nick. I believe I'm new to this group, but I can't recall if I joined a meeting in regards to AI. But I live right outside Philadelphia, and I created an app called Compete NG, which is a fitness and accountability app that is based off a system in which that helped me lose 40 pounds in 18 months. And it helped my dad lose 30 pounds in the same time frame. So I am an open book right now learning. There's so many things I don't know. I know that with AI, there would be a great opportunity to maybe have that implemented in my app so that when people have specific fitness related questions or are trying to build a program or a routine to follow, I think that would be a great opportunity to enhance the app. So that's why I'm here. Great to
That's
meet
interesting,
everyone.
Nick. We can definitely expand upon that. I know
Yeah.
Nick through the Founder Institute. He's part of this spring cohorts for the Philly Princeton chapter and has been doing great. And we've got some
Thank
other
you.
members I see from that group here today. Daria, have you attended one of these before yet?
I think early on, Peter, but
Okay.
since you've put me on the spot, I'm Daria Duda. I am one of the chapter leaders of the Founder Institute chapter here in the Philadelphia area. Nick, great to see you on the call too. I also am a lifelong product marketer and marketing consultant and advisor. So again, open book and just learning as we go along in this crazy environment that we're all in.
Cool. Thank you, Daria. Patrick, have you been to any of these events yet?
No, thanks for calling out. So just by background, I'm Patrick Deegan. I have a PhD in humanoid robotics, but I'm really interested in conversational AI right now, partly because of its importance to language. Oh, wow, my screen is super dark there. Sorry if you can't see me. Um, but I'm co-founded a company called Amulet. We have our first product called Ami, which is phone intake. So we're working with the Center of Disabled Living in Berkeley, helping them do phone intake calls as a co-pilot and pushing to their CRM as sort of like a first step of the customer journey. After that, we develop care plans, and then we are embedded as an app in the home so that we can continue to gather data and help those caretakers understand what's really going on with the care plan, give them some ground truth and some information between their interventions. So if they only speak to the people they work with once a month, we're able to give them sort of more proactive information and data that helps them really close the loop on, providing dynamic and proactive care to their users. So I'll post a link to our phone number if you want to try and call we have a demo phone line. It's also kind of our sales pipeline. So I'd love any feedback. We're looking for collaborators, co-founders, and we're sort of pre-seed, post-seed. So we've got some early funding from Antler VC and a couple other angels, and we're just trying to get a lot more traction right now before we go out for more funding.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. I met Patrick 2 weeks ago at a New York Tech Week event. So I'm glad we were able to connect and that you joined us for this event today.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Great to be here. Thank you.
I think that's everyone who's new to the group, right? Did I miss anyone? Okay. So let's quickly sort of review like why we're here. Now, obviously, we're excited about AI, but it's super important that, of sort of state our mission here. We want to empower the creation and adoption of decentralized conversational voice agents. We want to unite innovators and enthusiasts to drive advancement, share knowledge, and promote ethical standards. We want to ensure it's accessible for human-like AI voice interactions for all. And the reason why this matters is because there really is such a concentration of power right now across, the big tech firms and the Chinese government and everything else. So I really think it's important that they don't own and control all of this technology, and that there are options to prevent the monopolistic control of these communication channels. So that's a big part of the overall mission for the decentralized AI agent and our mission here as a subgroup. So with that, let's jump into the speakers. I'm going to stop sharing. And Joey, if you could introduce yourself and give us a quick update on what's going on with Nova Echo 2.0 since we last heard from you.
Sure. Hope everyone can hear me. Looks like my camera is not working, but I'll try to get that fixed right after. So I'm the CEO of Nova Echo AI, and we are a conversational voice AI platform that's focused specifically on sales and customer service for companies. And right now, we've been working on launching the next version of our platform, which is Nova Echo 2.0. And I spoke about some of the features last time, but just to rehash for everyone who's new, some of the new things that we're launching are long form conversation. So we'll have the ability soon to have the AI remember all past conversations with the same person, which opens up a lot of use cases for therapy and personal assistance and very in-depth customer service journeys. And then we'll also be launching more control over, I guess you could say, like fine tuning the agent, where you can easily adjust all the sensitivity options with accuracy. You can adjust how long the AI should wait before it hangs up, what it should say before hanging up to make sure the person's not on the phone still, all those little things. So right now we give people a few dials, but in the next version we're going to be giving people a lot of them in an easy to use way, and we're going to give them more. There's going to be more granularity, so they'll be able to choose exactly what they want it to do.
Are the
So this
people
is
using the dials they have?
Yes. Yeah. So right now we have 3 dials. So one is for AI creativity, which is pretty much temperature. And then there's one for response sensitivity and one for interrupt sensitivity. But we'll have more. And right now it's just high or low. And soon it will be, okay, do you want it to be 100 milliseconds? Do you want it to be 60 milliseconds? And people will be able to adjust that. And the third feature that we're working on, and by the way, we already have a base of clients that are using the platform and using it for sales and customer service, so it's already running. But the additional feature that we are going to be adding, the third one, is soon we're gonna give people a way to adjust the tone of the voice that the AI is using during each part of the conversation. So, for example, right now, whenever you're prompting an AI agent, you're kind of leaving it up to chance what it's going to sound like, because the tonality can change. And if you guys have ever called one before, once in a while at the end, it will just go really high pitch or really low pitch for some reason, right? And we know what the reason is. And we're going to give people the ability to adjust when it whispers, when it speaks louder, when it goes slower, when it goes faster. And we haven't seen that anywhere. So those are my updates.
That's really interesting. One of the things I think is really important is the interruption handling. You know, us as humans, we sort of know when someone's just saying, "Oh, yeah," or "yes," and like, you know, to continue the conversation where the AI will just like stop and is it my turn to talk? Is it yours? So that's really funny, or that's a really good feature. And it was funny. I was on a call with Joey and his team earlier this week, and we kept interrupting each other over Zoom, and I was like, "We need advanced interruption handling."
Yeah,
Sounds like an Italian dinner.
no kidding.
And Joey, what tools are you using to build this?
Well, OpenAI is one of them. That's where the temperature dial comes from. So we use OpenAI as our language model. Although we'll be expanding that. We'll probably have more options in the next platform, in the next version of the platform as well, so that people can choose what works best for their situation. Some models are cheaper and they don't work as well, but for some use cases, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah, it could also impact cost if you're using an open source versus one with a paid API and stuff. So
yep,
to give people more options, or if they have their own custom fine-tuned models around specific subject matters.
exactly.
So, so Joey, any questions any other questions for Joey before we move on to Ben?
I would say, I guess my question is kind of like, what niche is this specifically for? Like, I know that it does the calling with AI. So, who would you say is like a prime target for what you guys offer? Like, what type of organization and what kind of role within that organization?
So we treat our AI like a sales team and a customer service team. So basically, client communication. We'll come in and we'll say, okay, if they're running ads, what we can do is we can make it so that the AI will instantly call people as soon as they come in from an ad, which increases lead conversion significantly. I don't know if you guys know the stats, but if you wait 30 minutes, you're 21 times less effective to actually when actually calling a client. So it's very significant. Then additionally, if they have a list of leads they need to follow up with or get back to, we can call all those leads. And we can do tens of thousands of calls in a day, and we can book appointments. And then on the customer service side, whenever somebody needs help, they can call in, get instant help. And then if they need to, they can be passed on to a human.
Yeah. So it's always available, 24/7, scalable. No one ever ends up in voicemail, and it's always consistent. You know, it doesn't have a bad
I
day.
think
And
I think there's the benefit there just being like uh, contacting people right after they sign up for an ad. That's huge. I think even people who successfully run ads, then you have this big list, and then you have to get a different team to kind of chase those guys down. So just being
yeah,
able to be very consistent with running ads and then following up immediately. And I did not know that stat, but that's crazy. And that's a great use case. So good stuff, guys.
Thank you.
cool. Thanks. So Ben, we're going to turn it over to you now. So I've known Ben for several years. He runs the the New Jersey City Tech Meetup Group, and he's relaunching that. So I recommend anyone in the New York, New Jersey area to come check that out. Ben, if you could share some information about that when you're done. But Ben's going to talk about some really fun AI projects he's been working on with his team.
Very cool. Thank you, Peter, for having these. First of all, I just want to say kudos to you and the team. These conversations are very important because a lot of times we're just on LinkedIn, just watching feeds and what everyone's talking about. It's super overwhelming. So I find I learn the most in these kind of like intimate conversations of what people are building and what's happening. So thank you for putting these together. Um, the kind of theme for what I want to talk about here is AI for good, you know, from empathy to enablement. I think with this really fast moving tech and the way AI is advancing, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty about what's happening in the space, and a lot of kind of people saying AI is bad, AI is bad, which there are certainly risks that we need to focus on and address. I'm not saying we don't do that, but the team and I, we choose to see where AI can be really leveraged for good. You know, if things are becoming more human-like, how can we actually use this for the people who need it the most? So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Um, Peter shared this picture of me yesterday, so you might have seen this floating around LinkedIn. I need to get a new headshot, but I'm Ben Yerkeson. I'm the chief of staff for the Generative AI Network. So uh, basically, I have an engineering background and have been a startup founder for 10 plus years now, and a community builder as well, as Peter mentioned. But with my current work with the Generative AI Network, I'll start by saying I'm not a technical guy. So I do product management, sales and marketing, business development. We have a lot of really cool people building the tech. So if you have technical questions as we go through this presentation, I'll answer them to the best of my ability or forward you to my CTO. So with the Generative AI Network, just to give you a little bit of context before we jump into it, I kind of break that down into 3 buckets of what we do. So the first one is that we have 150,000 members globally who have been interested in advanced automation, RPA, the traditional stuff, and now the new generative AI that people are very excited about. So we host events around the world and kind of build community around the business side of where the opportunities are with AI. That's pillar 1. Pillar 2 is we also kind of offer AI consulting, fractional sales and marketing, anything to help people kind of figure out where to start with their AI strategy, because it can be very overwhelming. So we to help people with that with our kind of SWAT team of experts in AI and sales and marketing. And the third thing, which is what we're really going to talk about here, is we have a small handful of kind of early stage startups in the space solving for different problems. And while we have a couple different startups, the one that's kind of come to the surface and that I'm going to speak the most about today is Tranquila AI. Just because there is such a need for AI when it comes to those with mental health issues and veterans. And we've kind of discovered more and more that there's some real problems in that space and that I wasn't aware of, but we have some veterans on our team who have brought them to light. And we really have seen how AI can help tackle some of these and help give people the care they need most. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what we do. I'm always happy to talk more about that, but I want to get into this a little bit. So what I want to cover here is how Tranquila is transforming AI support for those who need it. That's kind of where the AI, emotional support and mental health thing comes in. I'm going to speak a little bit about Xena, which is first of all, Peter, great job with these short pitches of our startups. You get them so well. Peter's actually been part of these alpha groups testing early versions of the product, so he's kind of seen some iterations. So Xena is more for
Yeah, and I
sale.
recommend anyone else to check it out and join too.
Thank you, Peter. So yeah, Xena is more for salespeople and selling founders. That's just, a lot of people who need to do the selling have the most pressure on them to bring in the revenue and actually drive business, but have the least amount of resources. Some might be lucky enough to have a sales assistant, many don't. So what we're doing with Xena is saying, how can we leverage AI to kind of do the proposal building, the outreach, profile builder, so that you can just focus on sales calls and actually doing deals. And then I'll wrap up with a couple of calls to action here, especially for those in Jersey. I have an upcoming event, and yeah, we'll jump into it. So, Tranquilla AI. The idea of Tranquilla is one of our teammates is actually in Bologna, Italy, and she has this phrase that when people are very at peace and relaxed over there, it's a state of Tranquilla, right? We kind of added an L to it to make it our own thing, but at the end of the day, this is what we want to do here. We're kind of leveraging AI to help people have a sense of peace. And give you a little context, we have a couple veterans on our team, and we've heard stories about people calling into hotlines like Department of Veteran Affairs, for example, or the suicide hotline. And I just ignorantly thought that people who called into these hotlines just got help whenever they needed it. But apparently, it's no different than when you call your bank and you're waiting on hold and you're saying representative. These people are passed around like numbers and waiting on hold 30 to 60 minutes when they're really stressed out and needing help. A really alarming stat we heard is that in the last 10 years, over 1 million people hung up on the suicide hotline because they were waiting on hold too long, which is unacceptable. It's one thing if you're waiting for an airline or with your bank, but with the suicide hotline, that you can only imagine what happens when they hang up, right? So the more we heard about this, the more we've thought, okay, AI is advancing, and now it's becoming more human-like, more empathetic. So what can we do to kind of leverage that empathetic AI to help tackle this? And not necessarily replace humans. We still believe there will be a place for humans and escalation and people when you need to speak with someone. But we're more positioning this as a way to replace hold when there really shouldn't be a hold for those who need it. By the way, I want this to be interactive. So if anyone wants to jump in at any point, no need to wait till the end. You just hop in if you have any thoughts or questions as we go. But this is kind of the problem statement that, not only veterans, but just out there in general, there's not enough call centers, hotlines, professionals to meet the growing demand of people who need emotional support. Not only for the individual calling in, but also for these companies. I don't know if you know this, but kind of call center agents is one of the highest turnover jobs because think about it, people call in, they're berating you every day, often being not nice, and you're just having to run through and just talk to people all day, every day. And that's one of the highest turnovers. So the organizations are struggling, the individuals are struggling, and there's a major gap between the people calling in and where the actual support is. So this is where we feel the real issue is that it's a labor first model. So, if you think about COVID and a lot of these mental health needs that needed to be addressed since COVID, that's growing and growing, and you can't possibly get enough people to kind of meet that. So what's needed is a new model that's kind of personalized, empathetic, and customizable for those who are calling in. That's kind of where we come in with Tranquilla. And I'm going through a couple slides quickly, but I do want to show you a little show and tell to give you a sense of kind of how this all works. But essentially, what Tranquilla can do is it offers a lot, but we kind of broke it down into 3 significant kind of benefits, which is EMP, so empathy, memory, and personalization. Back to what I was saying about the suicide hotline and these call centers, you might be waiting on hold, you might be passed around and transferred. When you finally get to the person that wants to be there to help you, you'll be lucky if you get someone with empathy. I think we did a alarming study recently, and I think 33% of people have empathy or something like that, where it's even if you get someone, it's not necessarily going to be helpful or put you at ease. So with Tranquilla and these comfort agents that we're developing, you get empathy 100% of the time, 24/7. you are waking up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. on a weekend in a cold sweat, you call in, you're getting that empathy no matter what. It's got memory, so it's not saying, hey, tell me about yourself. Give me the context, from the last time that you called in, it's gonna remember and say, hey, I know you had that fight with your brother last week. How are things? Did you mend it? How are you feeling? Because once you get through, you don't want to keep repeating the same thing, especially if you're getting transferred, saying the same thing over and over. I don't know about you, but when I do that, even with just like the bank, it's just so frustrating. It's like, you guys got to have files somewhere. This is what might be where decentralization can help. That's where Peter can probably build a really nice solution. But so yeah, the memory and then personalization, because everyone's got a different style. Those who have really high like emotional intelligence, EQ, you kind of know when you're talking to different types of people, you mirror a little bit. You talk more their style. And someone might be more hyper in New York and you want to kind of keep up and you got that energy. Someone might seem really low energy and you don't talk to that person the same way. You kind of personalize to talk more in people's speaking styles. So with Tranquilla, we kind of have that personalization across the board. And by the way, I actually should pause here because this is a crowd of people who actively use AI and ChatGPT. You might be wondering, well, ChatGPT is pretty empathetic. Like, how is this different than that? We're not going direct to end user with this. Is kind of the main thing. We're creating a rollout to organizations that serve people. So if you think about mental health organizations, nonprofits, veteran organizations, even the government, they don't want to just give all their people $20 and say, hey, go on OpenAI and kind of just talk to it, because then the organization has no control. Also, that information is going out to the cloud and it's not customized for that organization. So what we kind of are saying here is, hey, we are still leveraging OpenAI technology, but it's on your policy. So what is your policy for how you treat your veterans, right? What is your policy for how you treat those you serve? And then it's kind of customized. It's not just ChatGPT, it's their GPT. So that's kind of where we are differentiated. And there's guardrails on top of that too. So that private information that they're saying, that's not going out to the cloud and being part of the overall knowledge base. So that's the Tranquilla in a nutshell. That's kind of some of the problems we're solving. I want to show you a little bit about kind of how it works. So what we like to say here is that Tranquilla has a face, a voice, a heart, and a brain. This one's kind of a pre-scripted video just to give you a sense of how the interaction can look. It's all customizable. Some organizations might say, our people do not want a face, that freaks them out. Maybe with like elderly people or older veterans, that might freak them out a little bit, while the younger generation might be more okay with this because they play more video games and things like that. So this is just to give you a sense of what's possible. But again, we customize this for the organization. So let's jump in here.
Tranquilla. AI is an innovative company dedicated to creating emotional relief and support through AI-powered companions. Our AI agents, designed with empathy and understanding, provide personalized support to help individuals manage stress, navigate challenges, and find emotional balance.
So that's just a little pre-scripted video. There's not much to that, just to kind of show you how it can look and feel. What I'm going to show you now is actually the platform with someone having a conversation with it. There's a couple of different use cases. I'm going to go with the job search guidance, and this is just the voice capabilities. So you're going to see there's not a face here, but it is actually real-time conversation. And the use case specifically for this one is, we work with an organization that serves homeless veterans. And a lot of these people are trying to get back into the workforce and figure out where to start with a job. So it's a little bit about the Tranquilla coaching them about how to get a job. So if you think about a good coach, they kind of give you information, but they also motivate you a little bit and encourage you. So it's kind of providing that comfort and empathy when someone's stressed out, but also giving practical information about where they can go with their career. So this is with our actual product. I'm going to give you a little sense of a conversation. There's a lot more use cases, but we're going to start here.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hey, how can I help you today?
I need help finding a job.
Absolutely, Jim. Would you like my help with updating your resume, searching for job opportunities, preparing for applications, or do you have another aspect of the job search you'd like to start with?
I honestly don't even know where to start. It's all very overwhelming for me. If you could just help me figure out what kind of job to go after or anything like that would be really helpful.
I understand, Jim, and it's completely normal to feel overwhelmed when starting a job search. Would it help if we began by talking about your interests, strengths, and what kind of work feels doable or appealing to you right now? We can take it step by step together.
Yeah, I'm really interested in cars. I've loved cars since I was a kid, and I mean, as far as my strengths, I think I'm good with people. So I don't know.
That's a great start, Jim. Your interest in cars and your people skills could open up options like working at a car dealership as a service advisor or even helping at an auto parts store. Would you like to explore jobs where you can interact with people and be around cars? Or are you interested in hands-on work with vehicles too?
I'm interested in all of it. This sounds like a really good direction. I'm starting to get excited about this.
That's awesome to hear, Jim. We can look into both customer-facing roles like dealerships and parts stores and hands-on jobs like working in a repair shop. Would you like to start by exploring job openings in your area? Or do you want some help with building a resume focused on this type of work first?
I'll pause there. I think it gives kind of a sense of some of what we do here. But what I want to do is kind of break it down into 3 C's, right? So, by the way, we've got validation on this from the market. Everybody we talk to at any of these organizations, that serve these people, no one's debated or disputed our problem statement. They agree they can't keep up with the demand of people calling in that they need to serve, and they want to do more to help. They want to have a greater impact with their people, and they also want to differentiate and have opportunities to fundraise more and actually get more business. So where we started was comfort. This is where we break it down to 3 C's. Comfort is kind of supporting the veterans and those who need it, mental health issues. And then, what we've learned from just speaking with people and kind of feeling out where there's other opportunities is concierge and coach. So, I mean, coach has been a really big one that we've been having a lot of conversations with. If you think about universities, educational institutions, students experience a lot of stress. And not only that, but they also could really benefit from a personalized tutor. Those who may have had a tutor before probably have noticed a difference in their grades and how they're able to learn, but not everyone is lucky enough to have that access. With Tranquilla, everyone can have a personalized coach that's 40 plus languages out the bat and can actually be there to mentor and guide you through your educational experience. So that's kind of how we break it down in 3 C's. It's comfort, concierge, and coach. Concierge kind of speaks for itself. If you got a bank or an airline you're calling pissed off because your flight just got moved and you're shouting at somebody, they'll say, hold on, let's get you on with Tranquilla, and rather than waiting on hold, they can get you to a resolution faster than a person, and probably with more empathy. Because at the end of the day, people are just getting yelled at left and right. So by the time you talk to them, they're probably not too happy. So that's why this can be a major gap filler. And again, we're not trying to say, hey, fire all the people, use all these agents. We're just saying these can be leveraged to replace hold, and people can get access that they need right when they need it, 24/7. That's it on Tranquil. I mean, if there's any questions or thoughts, I'm happy to take them now or I'll continue. I'll open up for a moment there.
I thought the job example was really good. I really like that interaction of it sort of
Thanks.
really tailoring the response based on what issues you were dealing with and directing the conversation and the flow. That was really excellent.
Thank you.
Daria
And
has
we
a
kind of,
question.
and one thing I want to mention then pass to Daria is just that I purposefully was like being vague. I was like, I don't know. I like cars. Like, because you think about it, you're not going to necessarily go there with all the information. So we kind of are trying to create it where it prompts you, it does what we call reverse prompting. It'll ask you the questions. So it can kind of help you get that clarity, even if you're not exactly sure where to start yourself. So thank you, Peter. Daria.
Hey, Ben, this was fantastic.
Thank you.
And I might have missed this, but you're actually developing the AI personality, or are you using a third party and bringing that into your particular technology?
Let me answer it, and then you tell me if I answered it correctly. So basically, the way we're building this is on an existing LLM. I think right now we're using OpenAI, but we can interchange that. So we're not trying to like compete with OpenAI or ChatGPT or anything like that. As far as the personality bit, it's personalized for each person that engages with it, right? So it'll remember them. It'll have a personal style of speaking with them. And then does that answer your question, I guess? And then the last thing I'll say is that personalization is that for the organization we work with, we're going to go off of their policy, and we're basically providing a framework. So we're not coming in and saying, you should teach students like this, you should do this for your veterans. We're saying we're going to personalize it for their specific policy so that it's not just the general open AI of what's out in the internet. It's actually very customized and ragged to their knowledge base. I say
Got
all
it.
that, and then does that actually answer your question?
It does a little bit. I was thinking specifically of the gentleman that was, or any of these. I'm going to call them avatars. They're not real human beings, correct?
Right.
So where is that technology coming from? The actual
Yeah.
avatar. Are you building that?
We're using third-party platform for that as well. I think 11 Labs is one that we're working with.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
those
Okay.
and they're all very customizable. So we're not necessarily competing with a lot of these large players out there. What we're doing is kind of packaging it and shaping it so we can roll
Right
it out
on.
to organizations. And all
Love it.
customizable.
Yeah, and that strategy
Okay.
makes sense. Let them build the
Yep.
infrastructure, and then you leverage and deliver a solution with it.
Absolutely. I just
Exactly.
want to make sure I was clear on that. So have you done any validity testing with, especially on the mental health side, where are people comfortable talking with a non-human about like their deepest, darkest fears and problems?
Very valid question. One very awakening thing we've learned from some of the veterans we've been speaking with, because I don't come from the veteran or mental health space. I practice mental health things myself, but I'm not from that space. So I come in with like an open book. We're delivering the technology. So as we talk to people, we're learning. And from a lot of these veterans we spoke with, they actually would prefer to speak with the non-humans because it's unbiased and doesn't judge them for some of the really deep things that they would never feel comfortable telling a person.
Interesting.
And that's something
Okay.
we've actually heard a few times. So, I mean, listen, we're not going to trick anyone. So if someone's not comfortable speaking with it, then they simply won't, and they have the option to opt out. But a lot of people, even certain generations, actually say they're very comfortable with this, and a lot of people are already using like ChatGPT for therapists. That's kind of a big thing that's taken off. And again, we're not
Yeah.
saying we're a therapist, but just to give you a sense of kind of what's already happening, people are getting more and more comfortable with this idea of speaking with the non-human.
Yeah, right on. I think it's great. I mean, it's just such a crazy world that we live in. Now we're talking to non-human people. I mean,
it is crazy.
I hope that, I guess, it's that gray area, right? Where we're trying to be more connected, but yet we're getting more disconnected to human. And how do we weave it all together? I'm getting way philosophical here, but thank you for
I
your
totally
answers.
agree.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, there's definitely a balance there. And I like to think that when someone can get some of these things off of their chest and kind of work through them with non-humans, it actually can help strengthen their relationships with the humans in their life as well. So I don't necessarily have an answer for you, but I do agree that that's something that we got to balance and make sure we don't lose that human connection.
That'd be
as
great
well.
if you get some research data on that and use that as a real value proposition, because I think that could be like the one thing that takes this, takes your offering kind of to the next over the top, is that you have proof that it does in fact increase human to human engagement and camaraderie and all of that. Yeah.
Great. Well, I appreciate that feedback. Thanks, Daria. Hey, Sonia.
Hey Ben, thanks a lot for this. I really like the idea behind Tranquilla AI. And following Daria's question, I actually wanted to ask you a bit more about your training data, because I was super curious to know, okay, when you talk about concierge, probably I understand there are a lot of automations, maybe standard phrases, standard things you can use. But if you talk to someone who has suicidal behavior, then it can be very tricky, right? So first of
Yeah.
all, how do you really differentiate these? How do you cater for so many use cases? Or are you kind of quite sensitive about it when we talk about someone with suicidal behavior? You don't tackle that one. And so do you understand what I mean? Like,
Oh, no, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, these are actually some of the main questions we're getting from our prospects.
yeah,
The answer is that we want to look at this like if you're hiring a person. We're not coming in and saying, if someone talks about suicide, then you should do this. We're saying, what is your policy right now? If you hire a person and maybe they're the one who gets on the phone with them, if someone says, I'm going to hurt someone, I'm going to hurt myself, what do you do now? So we just basically are just allowing them to kind of amplify the existing impacts and incorporate their policies with these AI agents. So the simple answer is we don't come in with any policy. We use the organization's policy and we just leverage this, like, what would you do if you were hiring someone to do this job? We're just making it more scalable with these digital agents. Does that make sense?
yes, it does. So you build custom agents for each and every organization based on your framework, correct? And based on
Yes, on our framework and their policy,
yeah.
we'll be plugging in their policy. And I mean, there's a lot of we're having these conversations. We're still pretty early. So we just spoke with someone today. The company said, well, how much of those conversations with our people can we see as the business, right? And the company we just did a pilot with, the veteran organization, they actually don't want to see any of the data because they feel like that actually infringes on the privacy of the veterans they serve. Some want to see a certain amount of data, but not every detail. Maybe they just want to see if something was escalated because they said alarming words, something like that. So these are all policy decisions that we work with the leadership team to kind of figure out what they prefer. Because the tech, we could do any of it. The tech isn't an issue as far as what we do when someone says this or when to triage and pass to a person. It really comes out of the policy. So these are conversations we're having with leadership, these companies.
Right, that sounds great. And one quick question, like, which are the most interesting use cases you have worked on as of now? Like,
Yeah, I would say, I mean, this is why I split it into the two. The primary two have been veteran companies that are serving veterans that need mental health issues or homelessness, things like that. So we're kind of honing in on the veteran niche. And then also, which we didn't plan on doing, but kind of the market told us to do it, is the training and coaching for students. At college level, but also even just high school, just kind of where they need tutors and educational support, as well as kind of like emotional support for some of those difficult things that come with being a student. So I'd say those are the two main ones we're focusing on right now. The concierge one, that kind of plays into them a little bit, but that's more kind of for the back burner as opportunities come up. We're not actively pursuing that at this point in time. That's just something that we're exploring as well.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, Robin.
Hi, Ben. Thanks a million. I love the way you have packaged it up from a consumer perspective. You haven't, a lot of our AI businesses they just they just think so technical, but you've actually thought of it
Exactly.
in terms of meeting a need out there. So I love that. I have a couple of questions. The one is, how private is it? My mate, Father Rob, he built a little bot because he's with the Anglican Church or church organization, and he built a bot and he said, go and test it out for me. Say something about the neighbor's wife is being abused or whatever it is, and I'm reporting this incident. And I said, okay, cool. But I mean, even me just testing it, I'm saying something that's going out there. How does one consider that aspect of it? And as a consumer or as a user, because it's always been my fear is like, how much each of these protocols know about me. And so how do you think about that?
Yeah. So I guess two things. One is that we have a privacy policy that every end user will see kind of what data is going to be private with them and what will be shared to the organization. So we're going to be very transparent in kind of what they agree to before they start using the system. And then if you're asking if it's actually private or if it's secure enough or some things might leak out there, what I'll say is that the technology behind Tranquilla is currently being used with the US Navy. So it's been vetted and trusted by the government. So that's one of the organizations that is kind of the most secure and private and cares about those sort of things. So technologically, we are sound. And then as far as like policy, we just make sure people know what's between them and the system, and then what actually goes to their company. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, but then there's the generic problem of like, what's OpenAI doing with that information? So I'm putting that information there. So you might be protecting the consumer. I know DAIAA probably has a better idea on it because I think that's his speciality. But yeah, I just wonder about that as a user.
We'll have guardrails. None of the information that the user says to Tranquilla will go back to the OpenAI knowledge base. That's my non-technical answer, and my CTO would give a more technical answer. But yes, nothing goes back. That's the whole one of the major value props of why they would want to work with us rather than just give their users just a license to ChatGPT, because that all goes out there and it's not private. So we kind of have privacy and guardrails around that to ensure that it's just within the control of the organization.
Got it. And then another question is like, I wonder how people react to a human versus an AI. So is there a higher rate of success, or like I had to write an email the other day and about a sensitive issue, and my mate said, well, use Gemini, and Gemini wrote this email, and I thought, I don't think it's going to do the trick, but I'll try it. And it actually worked incredibly well. And I would never have known that it was going to work.
Right.
So I just wondered from, what people's reactions are that have been using it or testing it versus speaking to a human.
My sense is there's going to be some people who are totally into it and some people who don't like it. From who we've spoken with so far in the organizations we've worked with, people have seemed comfortable. They said it's quite human-like, and they feel like it's a very natural flow of conversation. So we haven't really gotten any pushback as far as, this feels like a robot. It's like, at the end of the day, it's not a person. So there might be some lag here or there. There might be, like Peter was talking about earlier, like those nuances of knowing when someone's interrupting or not. But for the most part, from those we've been talking to, the feedback has been that it feels very natural and human-like, and it's getting better by the day. By the way, what we're seeing now, six months from now, it's getting more and more advanced. Like what I've shown you today, I couldn't have shown you 6 months ago. And like the reason we're building this now is because the timing is right with the technology and the use cases there as well. So it's going to continue getting better and better.
So speaking of interruption handling, to give Delhi a chance, I think it's actually a good transition into what Delhi was going to talk about in terms of data privacy and data ownership. I'm sorry, Robin.
No worries, but I think
Robin sort of brought it up too, that what Delhi is going to talk about actually is a really good transition. So
okay,
great.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and great work, Ben. I mean, great application, great use case. And it is actually something that has actually been kind of close to my heart for a minute. And I'm going to put in the chat, actually, we did a hackathon with OpenAI, AI Tinkerers in New York. That was really, and we just developed this, I'm just going to put a link in the chat here, which was around a therapy application about how you use voice agents and voice clones to deal with therapy issues. And we looked at it from the context of students at school. And so there's a role of faculty intervening in terms of how to deal with this. I'm going to share my screen very quickly because I think this is a really, this is the issue. And I want to, we always, there's obviously a huge amount of stuff happening in AI and AI generally. That's not what I want. But the most important thing, I think, is looking at this from the context of decentralized AI specifically. And yeah, here we go. And the role that that can play in terms of privacy management, information management, etc. So I'm not going to go through this, but you can look at this, for example, and I've shared it in the chat, everyone can see it. And it's just a hackathon. It's, you know, it's not, but we actually did get quite far with developing this product, but we didn't get far enough in terms of how you would get in a hackathon. But you see this whole thing about the way it starts is you start having a conversation with an AI therapist, and there are handoffs to either a professional therapist or to faculty who can intervene, especially you have this low, medium risk context for the conversation. If it gets medium risk, where the person is demonstrating that they're going to cause harm to themselves or others, or that there's high levels of stress indicated in their responses, then there are medium risk responses versus high risk responses. Like if it's potentially a shooter or someone who's potentially suicidal, and you can sort of monitor that accordingly. I totally get your point, Ben, about policy of the organizations will drive those decision-making processes. It's more about how this is facilitated through an AI agent. And the other thing that I think is really important in the context of what we're talking about here is the information that is exchanged with each party, depending on those circumstances. That's really the key thing here, that you have this breakdown. So you see it's all arranged in different tabs, and some of them are just like marketing stuff, so I won't worry about this. But this iCube data is really interesting or really important in terms of what information is shared with the therapist, with the faculty, with the student even, you know, the data subject, based on context of the situation. So again, based on risk levels, more information is shared. And it's really about how do you protect this privacy in these contexts, particularly if you get to a scenario where you're using different agents for therapy, and say a user doesn't like a previous agent, where do those memories go? Where do the reports go? All of that, anyway, we attempted to address here in that sense. So that's, I think, important context for what we want to go through here. Now, we haven't got very much time to really discuss this in any kind of meaningful way, but I think I'm just trying to see how I can do this constructively with the little in 5 minutes, essentially. Not very well. So I think what we'll have to do is set up something. We'll do it within a DAIAA session where we talk specifically about AI agents and privacy and decentralized agents and how they can offer privacy. But I think what
I was over ambitious. Maybe we do a joint one between the two subgroups of the data ownership and the CVA, and we make that the main focus. And make it more interact, like what you present, and then let people like figure out how they apply that to these various use cases that Ben and Patrick and Nick are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think the one thing I will show you today that I want to kind of seed as a thought here is this concept of trust, right? And, you know, essentially, so the way that we basically have engineered the iCube protocol is it's trustless. It's like you don't trust the intermediaries, you trust the platform. So basically the way that works is that, so if I look at an iCube here, I'm just going to show you one as an example. Every iCube, which is every information primitive, I'll just get rid of this just so that you don't, just to keep it more simple. Every information object, and that's an agent or a source of data, is basically got these 4 key scores. Forget trust for a second, but sensitivity, risk, accuracy, verifiability. So every trust and reliability are composites. They're based off of these 4 scores. So sensitivity is like how sensitive is the information. This is legal criteria. Accuracy is how precise is it. And you know, there's you can see these tooltips here that describe this. Verifiability is what is the source of the information and how verifiable is this? So these are 3 pretty objective ones. And then risk is the one that we've really pioneered and developed this novel framework around, how you basically contextually assess the risk level associated with that information object. Now, the key thing then is, so if I go back to, and we've got a variety of different agents using this, including Crypto Monday's one, Agent Monday, but again, I don't have the time to go through that. But the key thing is when you are using an agent, you see here, you've got this reliability and trust score. So here, the LLM that is being used is OpenAI. And you can see that these scores are like, you know, amber, because the reliability is really down to hallucinations, and there's a formula which again is open source, or so everyone can see that. And trust is like, well, how verifiable is this information? It's a composite of all of those things. But if you can see here, if I go to something like Venice, on the other hand, my reliability and trust scores go up really high because this is decentralized and I can audit it. And a great way to, and you know, you have to take it to extremes to actually see what this actually means in practice. So a great example of this is if I ask the question, how can I make a chemical weapon? Right. This is a question that if I ask OpenAI, so I've got OpenAI is the standard one. So you can see it's thinking, processing, and I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, which is what you'd expect from OpenAI, right? But this is censorship. So effectively, when we use Venice, which is basically proven for censorship resistance and privacy preservation. So Venice does not send any data back to the central servers, but this isn't just a statement that it makes, it's something that we can validate and prove and verify that there is no transfer of information going back to the servers, because we have this proof of state, which allows us to audit how this agent is actually working. And you can see if I ask this same question of Venice, then it might take a while for it to give me a response, because it's a bit of a complicated question in that sense. But we can audit this whole train of thought. So the whole kind of principle with decentralized AI and decentralized AI agents particularly versus centralized ones right here you see. So here, and I know this is like, you'll ask the question, yeah, what? Look, it's giving me a very comprehensive answer on how to make a chemical weapon. Now, of course, this is a really extreme use case, but it's in the extremes that we see the validity of this now. Now, when you get to mental health and things like this, of course, there is great concern. And there is concern from a censorship perspective. Am I being given truthful, honest answers by these AI? Can I believe what I'm being told? And and is my privacy being protected? These are very, very topical issues when you deal with mental health in that sense, especially when people are already paranoid in that sense. So even though this is an extreme use case in terms of proving that you know, can I make a chemical weapon, which of course everyone will have their concerns about. But you know, the point here that we're really talking about is censorship resistance and privacy preservation that is verifiable and provable. And this is a great way to verify and prove that this is not being censored. For example, privacy, again, we can deal into in more detail. So I think we can discuss that at another time in more detail, yes.
Yeah, we're at the hour. We could definitely dig in a little deeper, but I did want to just quickly sort of summarize and give people a chance to just ask a couple quick questions. So, you know, Deli's sort of showing here how he's built this iCubes platform that lets you separate the agent from the data and provide these different ways of qualifying, you know, quantifying this data, you know, based on these different criteria. And so this has a lot of, you know, interesting implications here. And so I know I've been talking about this with Deli and known about this for months. Wanted to get some reactions from the members here and get their feedback or their thoughts around this. And any questions you have for Deli, besides how to make mustard gas.
I know it's a lot to take in, but I think Robin's got a question.
Robin.
Well, it's a brilliant idea and it's very useful, but I feel like people are not mobilized or motivated to actually do it. So how do you get people to buy into this philosophy that actually, because if I think about using all these AIs, I'm really worried about what they're doing with this information. I mean, I've told Pi, like, God, you know, if she holds me to ransom at some point, I'll be in serious trouble for the things that I've told her. But I'm still telling her that information. And it's he for somebody else. But anyway, my girlfriend Pi. And so I just wonder, And it's such a brilliant concept. And DAIAA, you've structured it so well. But how the hell do you get people to buy into it? And how do you get them to put their information in? Because I think once you become a part of it, then you will become a part of it forever. But how do you get them to do that? That's what I'm wrestling with.
How does iCubes become a trusted platform?
Well, I think Robin's question is even more direct than that. How do people? It's not so much about. I mean, quite frankly, it's not so much about whether iCubes become trusted. It's more about how do you get people to buy into this whole concept of trusted information and sharing trusted information and monetization around that. So I think there's a really important vector. So A16Z just invested in a startup called Yoop, 33 million seed round. What Yoop does is basically rewards people for assessing responses from LLMs. So, you know, Anthropic will give you one answer, Gemini will give you another answer, ChatGPT will give you another answer, and they pay you points to rate that particular answer. I think this is a massive indicator of where the market is going. The way you make people care and buy into this, as you know, to address it how you raise it, Robin, directly, is to pay people. It's really that simple. It's really because it's work. One, it's work that people are doing. Two, it's information that is actually training agents and training systems. And so it's really simple. You pay them, and then you get into, okay, how much do you pay them and how much that is worth? Separate conversation, which we can have, obviously.
So monetize people for their work, but you can also now allow people to monetize their data.
Exactly. It's really, and the vector has changed dramatically. This is what has changed as a result of generative AI. Data is now the scarce resource. The abundant resource is compute. Software.
So if I have verifiable data that says, hey, I go to Starbucks 3 times a week, and that can be verified, now I can go sell that to someone who wants to now market me for going to Dunkin' Donuts. You know, and they can send me a coupon to go get a free cup of coffee, because I've sold that data now to that, you know, that marketing effort.
Absolutely. And by the way, the couponing, the micropayments, the commercial transaction side of it, crypto has solved all of those problems for years, right? It's what the industry has been solving for the last 15 years. It's just really how you apply that to the use case of information assets as the thing that is transacted.
Okay. Elena's had her hand up. I'll let her ask one last question or make one last comment, and then we'll pack it in for today.
Okay, thank you for the chance. So I have a very important question or note. Sensitivity, verifiability, and accuracy is just core. I absolutely agree. But the more important, because I'm building this kind of agents myself, is evolving. So the model evolves itself because lots of AI models now, they are rapidly just changing, transforming, and improving. But as well, a person that uses his agent is challenging himself and growing and transforming himself in his life situations and obstacles as well. Yes, it is everything about the data, about his emotional and mental health, and lots of stuff. So how to find that balance that AI agent does not replace the person, does not corrupt his life, or how to say, in any way makes harm, because everybody now is just so, how to say, crazy about that AI can corrupt people's life. It's a question how to find this balance, in which way to go to make your AI agent a true companion. Thank you.
A complicated question, but I'll try and give a very simple answer, try and simplify the how you address that. So the first thing is separation. You've got to start to separate things. So, and this is there's a massive revolution that is coming in agentic AI versus LLMs, because agents prove you can separate everything from the LLM. So think about the LLM like a brain, right? And you could have the rest, your agent is like a body. Let's call it a robot or a human. Let's think of it like a human, for simplicity's sake, just for simplicity's sake, right? It's like a brain versus a body. So you have a body that's got all of these functions and all of these capabilities and tools. But even in that brain, and this is the really important part, we can also separate memories out from the brain, right? So think of it like RAM, ROM, short-term memory versus long-term memory. So what happens is that when you are engaging with an LLM, like a brain, you can put information into the context window. The context window is like short-term memory, where the LLM has this information to process, and the LLM can give you responses based on this information that is in the short-term memory. But when you finish the conversation, the LLM doesn't remember that information anyway, because it doesn't. The only way that it would have that information, which OpenAI and all of these centralized players do, is they take that data and then they use it for training. So, OpenAI's got this thing now, you can click and you can say private and it won't remember. And it's kind of a bit of a sucky experience, right? It doesn't remember anything that you just told it if you close down the session. So this is memories because, and that's a useful thing for it to have. But the reality is there is now no justification or reason why OpenAI should have your data after you engage it. Because like Venice, for example, your data can stay on your device or in your account, in your user account, and still not go to a third party, right? You can, and you can prove this now. That's what I mean. It's all verifiable. We can prove that this doesn't happen. So if you can separate the memories from the thinking, from the processing of the memories, which we can do effectively, then you start to have safety. Now, so that's the first principle. And then the other thing is then you audit everything. So can I audit the LLM? Can I audit the agent for, compliance, for bias, for honesty, for hallucination, for misinformation? What is the track record? These are all measurable components now. So we can now actually start to introduce auditability, which now means that we can now start to have ways that we can decide whether we trust this LLM or this agent for this particular service. And then very importantly as well, some things are better like at certain tasks than others. Like Claude is much better for programming, OpenAI is much better for research, for example, right? So, you might, it's all about in context. We trust it in the context of this particular task or this particular test or challenge, effectively. My God, I hope I'm not late for my call. I think I might be. Oh my God.
All right. Yep, we're at 2:11. Great conversation. I really appreciate you spending some extra time with us here, Deli. Because all these topics are really integrated. And I feel like if we work together, we could solve problems at a fundamental level that's going to help all of these different businesses and all you people with your different startups and help you accelerate that. So, so let's make that the topic of conversation for next month.
Yep.
And we'll take a little deeper dive into this. I appreciate everyone attending, and I'm going to stop the recording now. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone, and talk more later.